There have been experiments throughout history, especially in the past 20th century, that have tried to find this out, especially after World War II, when we look at the Nazi occupation, in which normal, perfectly great German citizens were forced to do horrible things to Jews. And I want to ask this morning, would you have done that to Jesus? Would you have went along with the crowd because somebody in authority over you told you to do something? Because you were afraid of getting humiliated yourself, you were afraid of losing your job, you were afraid of hurting yourself or your own feelings, that you did something horrible to somebody else. And would you have done it if you were there with Jesus? You see, we all have the potential to become monstrous people. We all have that potential. We all have those thoughts, and we can, if we want to, choose to act on them. And we see that so often, even in our own culture, with shootings and with, you look at extreme Islam. You see horrible things happening. And usually these people aren't necessarily horrible people. But they choose to act on these horrible things. Would you have done the same? Well, after he was beaten and humiliated and made a mockery of, they led him to the place he was going to be crucified. And the last bit of torture and humiliation they would give to the people they were going to crucify is that they would make them carry their cross. And often we think that Jesus' cross was one piece like this, and he had to carry the entire thing. But that probably wasn't the case. The vertical piece of the cross was already put in the ground, usually. And the horizontal piece, that would weigh 80 to 100 pounds easily, would have to be carried by the person. Now, it might be somewhat easy for us to carry a 180-pound piece of wood under normal health. But Jesus has just been beaten to the point of death, to where there's no way, very unlikely at least, where anyone could physically carry that. And Jesus, we know, couldn't carry it the whole way. But they brought Jesus to a place called Golgotha. It's called the place of the skull. And many of us, we never hear songs with the word Golgotha in it, but we hear songs with the word Calvary in it. And Calvary is Latin for skull. It's the Latin word of the word Golgotha. So I think that's pretty interesting. But as Jesus was walking to that place, the place of the skull, to Calvary, he couldn't carry the weight, and he dropped the bar. But then, of course, one of the Roman soldiers took a man out of the crowd, and we find that his name is Simon. He's from Cyrene, which was a city in northern Africa. And at this time, northern Africa, especially the city of Alexandria, had the largest population of Jews in the world. It wasn't Jerusalem. Egypt had the largest population of Jews. And Cyrene is outside of Egypt, and this man was probably on a pilgrimage because this was the Passover week, and he'd probably come to Jerusalem to go to the temple. And he was in the crowd, and he was taken out. And he was forced to carry the weight of Jesus' cross. Now, I want to say just a few things about this man, Simon. That this man very well could have been the first person that became a Christian. If you turn to Romans, and at the very end of Romans, Paul is saying, greet all of these people. And one of the people he says to greet is, he says, please greet Rufus, the one that is chosen by the Lord. And Rufus, if we look at the scripture of Mark, Rufus is the son of Simon. So that at least we know that through this, that one of the people, one of the soldiers that Paul is talking about, one of the people that helped form the early church, is this man's son that carries the cross for Christ. It's a pretty horrible story, really. But try to really think about what this means. We often read over it and we think about this, but we keep on reading until we get to the resurrection and we can feel good about it. So we're not going to do that now. We're going to just leave it there and we can think about this, about what Jesus has gone through for us. Right after that, with verse 22, it says they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. Often it's very easy to read over that, but somebody in the crowd or some soldier had compassion on Jesus. And that wine mixed with myrrh, the myrrh would have been a very bitter thing, but it would help numb pain. It was used as a medicine as well in that time. So they offered him really medicine. If you drink this, it's going to help you at least a little bit. But what does it say? It says he did not take it. I think that shows us something. It shows us that Jesus has been through everything. Everything that we can possibly imagine. All the pain in the world. And he had opportunities to come out of it. But he refused them. In Isaiah chapter 53, verses 5 through 6, when I first heard this verse in this context, it really blew my mind. It was many years ago, but I really thought the Old Testament had nothing to do really with the New Testament. They were sort of just put together. But hear these two verses. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each one of us has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. I think that's a pretty powerful verse coming from the Old Testament, this prophecy of what would happen to Jesus.